Hello everyone, I'm Nate and welcome to the channel. I think every Begleri player knows this. You know that the choice of cord is just as important as the beads. So I have this 275, I have 550 here, right? I remember whenever I switched from using kind of 275 to 550, it was a big game changer for me. So today on the channel, we're gonna be reviewing something that changes that cord up completely and actually doesn't really use a cord, but a ribbon. All right, so we're going to be talking about the Tetras from Niceroll. So let's take a look at these. I started following Niceroll on Instagram a couple weeks ago. These immediately caught my eye and I thought, you know what, I'm going to reach out to him, see if he'll send me a set. And so he was very kind to send me a set, so thank you very much. Let's talk about the construction of these before we kind of sling them. These are custom machined aluminum beads here. They are 18 millimeter beads. All in the set, they say, is about 30 grams, which is about accurate as well. I went ahead and weighed that. It kind of depends probably on the length of cord, but that's not going to change the weight too much. But yeah, it came at about 30 grams. A heavier set, right, for a lot of players, especially advanced players. But I didn't find these to be too heavy for what they are. So, and then they are anodized black. Right now, the only color that these come in is black. It did come with an extra ribbon here. It came with a black one, but I have it strung up here with the blue. You can select on the website like what color you want on that as well for the ribbon. So that has red, blue, and black as options there. So yeah, this is polyester, the ribbon here, so you can burn off the ends just like you would normally do with maybe, you know, paracord. And so you can kind of have that nice and closed off there without it fraying, right? So what you're gonna see here then, the custom beads here had to take that stripping, right? One thing I found that was kind of nice is that these do slide really well. So like if you even wanted to like bead count with them and not use them even as Begleri, or if you wanted to kind of manipulate as you're kind of slinging, right? You know, and kind of pull them off on one end, you could do that, or whatever, right? But but it's nice that they do slide very freely there, very smooth here on the polyester, so they slide really nice and have a nice clack there with the aluminum. Now, exploring his website a little bit, it does seem like he wants to explore other things here. This is not going to be a hopefully one and done. Hopefully it takes off. So definitely check them out, definitely support them. These are really affordable for what they are as well. So I don't feel like it's much of a gamble, right? If you just want to try it out and support a maker, right? But let's go ahead and actually sling it, and I'll kind of just walk you through what my opinion is on it and maybe what they really excel with. All right, let's go ahead and change this camera angle around and I'll keep talking. All right, here we are. So, you know, one of the things that it mentioned on the site is that these are going to be kind of ideal for rolls and things like that, and maybe aerials and so on. I could see that. Now, of course, the reason why it works so well with things like rolls, right, is that it just kind of flattens out, right? It gives you so much space on your finger to actually kind of, well, to roll it, right? It's not probably going to be great for every type of trick though, right? Because it isn't round. And so you almost have to kind of adjust your play if you're wanting to kind of throw, you know, anything that it would kind of like twist the cord a little bit. Like for instance, like spirals might be a challenge, right? Because they're kind of going to wrap up a little bit maybe, just like so, right? So you're going to have to kind of adjust accordingly, right? It may not just be simply the ribbon. It might also be partly the beads. These are pretty large. These are 18 millimeter. In fact, I haven't tried this yet, just because I want to kind of play them standard, but they're heavy enough. I think even one bead at the end might actually be a possibility. And I'm just curious if that would give me a little bit more space within some of those more techie kind of tricks. Curious like how it might actually play with one bead, and maybe I'll do that with a follow-up, maybe short or something like that. But I think that might give you a little bit more space with some of those like smaller pockets in those more tech kind of tricks, if that makes sense. A little heavier than I normally play with, but I don't feel like, maybe it's just because of the size of the bead and because it is oversized, that it doesn't necessarily feel like it's super heavy, right? I don't feel like they're like, I'm having to like, you know, push it, or it's like kind of killing my arm here. I don't feel like it's doing anything like that. But I tell you what, it's a nice, refreshing take. It's a challenge. One thing I failed to mention here is that it's really important, and he does have actually an instructional video on this, to tie off the ribbon so that it's nice and flat, so that then the bead actually rests and pushes all the way up against the knot there. The other thing, and I haven't tried this yet, but I think you could probably burn this off and kind of flatten it off enough that the bead's also not going to fly off the end, so you can eliminate the knot completely. That also might be kind of a good look, a clean look, and I think it might actually be a good way to string them up as well, which I might consider doing at another time, right? So maybe, you know, maybe I'll set this up with a single bead on each end, and then maybe not have that knot there, and I'll throw that in a short here upcoming. So stay tuned maybe for that, and kind of just give you my feedback on that. Again, I have to kind of adapt everything so that, one, the momentum's different because of how large and how heavy the beads are, and the momentum's different because, well, primarily because of the actual material, right? Now, I'm not sure who to really recommend these to. I think for maybe a newer player who's maybe kind of getting introduced to rolls and things like that, I think these might be helpful, right? Kind of, they're almost like a handicap a little bit in learning those. Not necessarily, I don't know if that's really the right word here, is a handicap, because in some way, like something like a pinky roll is actually kind of hard a little bit as far as the momentum. I have to kind of time it differently, if that makes sense, compared to maybe, and again, maybe just what I'm used to, right? I have to kind of completely play these different. But really, I think I would most recommend these to people who already have a couple of sets, right? I have a lot of sets of Begleri, right? And I think these are a nice add-on. They are novelty, right? But I think that's okay to have novelty sets. And I just think it's a really cool option that we have something like this, and changing up the cord. I think it opens up the door to all kinds of really cool designs. I would love to see titanium ones, right? I think maybe the weight would be a little bit less on them, possibly. I'm not sure, actually, but some way to maybe kind of bring the weight down. I don't really think you can make a smaller diameter bead if you're going to keep the same width of ribbon here, right? Because, yeah, there's not much space here to kind of give. Like, that canal goes pretty far off. If it goes much further, like if the bead was much smaller in diameter, you wouldn't have enough room to actually make that channel in the beads. So you might be able to use a smaller ribbon, maybe, like maybe something that's not 3/8. I don't know what width these actually come in. I'm not as versed on that, but that might be a possibility to make a smaller bead that way. But I do think maybe shaving off a couple grams might actually be really beneficial. Again, who I think I'd recommend these most to is somebody who's maybe a little bit more advanced overall, because I think possibly it could be either too much of a handicap or too frustrating when you're learning some tricks, because you're not maybe sure how to adapt your play with these yet if you don't know the trick yet. So yeah, those are the Tetras. I dig these. I think they are unusual, right? And they certainly took some time getting used to. Honestly, I probably should even play them a little longer. I think the more you play these, the more you kind of understand the flow of them, because the momentum is quite different. It kind of depends on what tricks you're throwing, but the weight of them and the size of the beads, and of course the most important thing, the actual choice of cord or ribbon in this case, completely changes the game. They definitely feel like Begleri. I don't see any reason why I couldn't play pretty much any other trick with them. It's just going to take some adapting for some of those things. You definitely should check out these Tetras. I'll have a link in the description where you can purchase these. Yeah, I think it's just cool, and it gives a whole new perspective on Begleri. So go check them out. Niceroll. These are the Tetras. And until the next one, later.